Hello, it's Alpha here. We are back with another PvP video. This time we're talking about normal arena. And we are mainly focusing on this Lily May plus tank plus 2 healers and Scarlita team that I've been seeing. There are a couple of variations. So this is like the core of the team, and then you can have either Thoran or you could have Presto as the tank, and then the second healer can be like Damian or Coco, for example. And then it's between like Confining Spell or Enlightening Spell. And this team is like really difficult to deal with if you don't have your own Scarlita or Lily May. So I'm gonna be mostly talking about teams without either one of these. And yeah, let's see if we can get some wins. I've been kind of struggling against this team, if we are being honest, but I'm gonna show you some of the things that I've been testing, and we do have some wins. And then maybe you can get some ideas and test your own stuff as well. So the first thing that I've been testing is team with Ulmus, because I recently got my Ulmus to Mythic Plus. Now, why do I think that Ulmus has potential? Well, he's a wilder hero, so obviously he fits in with something like Arden and Aeron, etc. and good healers. And he can tank pretty well the front line, so you need someone to kind of tank the damage from Lily May and Thoran. So he can do that pretty well, and even if he gets like killed by Thoran, then he can still resurrect once and continue providing damage, etc. And his main ability or use is the Mythic Plus ability, which, if you don't know what Ulmus does, whenever enemies get displaced by some effect, Ulmus roots all of the enemies that are displaced for extra 2 seconds. So, for example, Aeron's ultimate will displace the enemies, but there are some other stuff as well. If you have Ulmus ultimate will also displace them, and if you have Ulmus at Supreme Plus, his own shield will displace enemies. So yeah. The idea that I initially had was that I built some kind of like a nuke team that is able to kill the enemies before the Scarlita comes down, fully powered up. So we would be using something like Ulmus, Arden, Aeron, and Alsa. And then the last piece could be Damian or Brian, for example. And as a disclaimer, I have to say that my Ulmus is not Supreme Plus, so he's not like there is not the full potential there, because when he's Supreme Plus, obviously he's more tanky and deals more damage, and he also gets the displacement effect on his shield. So it's possible that if I had him on Supreme Plus, this would be working better. Also, I don't have him with +5 or +10 weapon, but I mean the weapon effect is not that important in my opinion with Ulmus. It just gives him more damage and gives him some lifesteal. But yeah, having him on Supreme Plus would be great, but currently I don't have. So with couple of initial testing fights, I haven't had Ulmus for a very long time, so I haven't been able to do that much testing, but this burst team doesn't really seem to work. So that's the unfortunate conclusion. And the reason is that Lily May makes this team like a lot weaker. So before Lily May, if the enemy was running something like Aeron and Arden, for example, then this team would have been like really great. And I'm sure that it would win like pretty much every time. But if the enemy is running something like this, the issue with the burst team is that even if you start the battle with Aeron's ultimate, and you kind of like, for example, with this one, you hit the enemies here, but your Aeron's ultimate won't actually hit pretty much any of these targets. So Lily May will go into well, she will interrupt the Brian, so she's like untargetable, so the Aaron's ultimate won't hit Lily May. Damian leaves the battlefield when the battle starts, so he's not hit by the Aaron's ultimate. Scarlita leaves the battlefield, so she is not hit by the Aaron's ultimate and the Ulmus roots. And especially if the enemy team is running Hewynn with Enlightening spell, then she is not. The Enlightening spell protects from crowd control, so you don't hit the Hewynn either. So the only thing that you're hitting when the battle starts is Thoran, and that doesn't matter at all. So that's the main issue. Then yeah, you can do your burst damage, but because they have 2 healers, then it's just gonna be out healed, and then you will just lose. I'm gonna show you one attempt against this one. I think if the enemy is running confining spell and you can like hit the Hewynn, it's possible that with better placement and like Supreme Plus, almost etc., you would be able to win against teams that have confining spell, because I was, for example, in this case, I was able to kill the Lily May and the Hewynn before the Scarlita comes down, but then Scarlita comes down and just slaps my team away. So maybe I'll try with some placement like this next time, because I think the Alsa was not really doing that much, so maybe with the help of Shakir we would be able to kill the enemies even faster, because Shakir has like healing reduction and he also provides some damage reduction for the team, so we would be maybe able to tank the Scarlita a bit better. So maybe something like this could work, but I have to test it. But I'm just gonna show you this clip anyway, even though we lose this one. So yeah, that's kind of how the fights went when I tested this team a couple of times, so I kind of gave up on this team. So the next idea that I had was to kind of build a bit more tanky version of the team. So we are dropping the Brian basically, or well, I mean, we're not necessarily dropping the Brian. Like I think with the, if you have these heroes, you are maybe able to build a team that can like reliably win against the enemies. But I don't have Supreme Plus Hewynn, for example, and I don't have Supreme Plus Scarlita and Lily May, so I'm not really able to test the stuff that well. And obviously I've had only the Ulmus for a couple of days, but maybe at some point I'll be able to test a little bit more. But this is the team that I was able to test because I have these heroes. And here are some of the battles that I was able to win with this team. Now, I would say that these are kind of like pretty messy fights, so maybe with different RNG these fights could go the other way and I would lose them. But the idea is that, like I said, we are dropping the Brian and we are letting Lily May interrupt our Arden's first ultimate, but then Arden will be able to ultimate second time later on in the battle, and then we can hopefully kill everyone when that happens. Now the issue is that if you have to wait for Arden to ultimate the second time, that is usually gonna be around like 15 seconds or 10 seconds into the battle. So that means that the enemy Scarlita is gonna be coming down already. So you are not able to like necessarily kill the enemy team before Scarlita comes down, and then it's possible that Scarlita just slaps your team away. But you do have some tankiness in this team because obviously your Damian is healing, but I think it's possible that Hewynn would be better in this team because Hewynn has the damage reduction buff. But where you do have some tankiness is that because you're bringing in 3 melee units, which might sound a bit scary when you're fighting against Thoran, but Shakir's aura actually gives quite nice damage reduction for your team. So everyone the allied heroes that are within Shakir's aura will get damage reduction, and if there are 2 or more allies within the aura, Shakir will also get some extra damage reduction. So we were able to win these all fights, and I'm gonna show them. Now I would say that once again, if the enemy is running confining spell, this is, I would say, you have better chance of winning. But we were also able to win against the enlightening spell one. But with this one, Hewynn is only plus 5, whereas with these confining spells, Hewynn is plus 10. And in this one, there is also like paragon heroes as well. But yeah, let's take a look at how these fights go. Okay, so that's something that you can try, or maybe with some like other variations, depending on what heroes you have. And maybe I would try with Hewynn instead of Damian. And then this is also one version that I was thinking about, and I did a couple tests with it. So the idea is that you bring in Vala as your main damage source, and you bring in Temesia as like secondary tank, but there is also synergy. Well, there is synergy between Vala and Temesia because Temesia gives, if you have a Supreme plus Temesia, she will increase the amount of physical damage that the enemies take, so Vala can kill them quite more easily, and she will also go for the enemy backline, so you have more damage to the enemy backline. So with combining these two, you may be able to kill the enemy Hewynn. Of course, it depends like how, like if you have plus 20 Vala and if you have a Supreme plus Temesia, it's obviously easier. And once again, if the enemy is using confining spell, it's a lot easier because. So the thing is that if they're running confining spell and you can start hitting the Hewynn won't be able to ultimate because Vala has like a haste debuff, and she also takes away energy from the enemy, and she stuns Hewynn, so Hewynn won't be able to ultimate as fast. So you might be able to kill them, the Hewynn. And then also Ulmus has synergy with Temesia because when Temesia is riding through the enemies, it seems that she's kind of considered to be displacing the enemies, so that then the Ulmus can also root the enemies. But I haven't been able to do that much testing because, as you can see on this account, my Temesia is also only Mythic Plus and doesn't have any weapon upgrades, and it's not Supreme Plus, and she actually doesn't even have the Focus upgrade. So it's not really good for testing, but I was able to win against this team. And then I also did against, like, this is not obviously the same team because it doesn't have like Scarlita and Thoran, but I just wanted to kind of test against this kind of like more damage heavy team, and we were able to win this one as well. And so let's look at those clips. So yeah, those were kind of my Ulmus tests. Then another thing that I was testing was just with Temesia in general. And well, yeah, we also went through why she is good. And because with Temesia and Vala, you might be able to kill the enemy Hewynn quite quickly. So one version of this team is something like this. So the idea is that Antandra tanks the Thoran and the Lilymay. So you place Antandra on this like frontmost position because Lilymay will start focusing the closest enemy, which is the Antandra, and then you with your Vala and Temesia, you focus on the enemy healers. Now you might notice that with this one we actually have plus 20 Vala and plus 10 Temesia, because I was able to do some testing on my friend's account. So I was able to do some testing with this team, but they don't have Ulmus, so I wasn't able to combine the tests, but it was still interesting to test the Mauler version. So I would say that once again you notice that enemy Hewynn is not plus 10 with these teams, so take that into consideration, and Vala is plus 20, so if you want to kill Hewynn with this position, you kind of have to have like plus 20 Vala, I think. And with this one I was able to win quite often, not every time, but quite often, like more wins than losses. And then this team, they don't have the enlightening spell, so they use a confining spell. We are running kind of the same team, just with different placement, and they actually have paragon one team except Scarlita, and this I was able to win I think 2 out of the 4 fights. So there is some RNG when it comes to Vala, because it's quite annoying actually, because sometimes she gets stuck in her like melee form, so she will start like running around these corners, etc. So that can mean that she's not dealing damage, and maybe she dies to like, I don't know, Thoran or whatever. So, and sometimes she doesn't crit and sometimes she crits, so there is RNG, but I think it's still quite good that we were able to win like half of the matches, even though these are like paragon heroes. And then with this placement I was able to win both of the matches. I think I did more than 2 matches and I was able to win at least most of them, but at least I did back-to-back 2 matches and I was able to win both of them. But with this one there is also some randomness involved, because yeah, for the same reasons that sometimes the Scarlita can land on different places and sometimes your Vala can be like running around in stupid ways, but anyway, it seems like somewhat reliable.
Another victory. Another.
And then I was also testing a Graveborn version, so I was using Thoran and Niru and Ludovic instead of the Maulers. And the idea here is that, well, with Niru, for example, the Lilymay will start by interrupting the Niru, so you Lilymay won't interrupt your Vala, for example. So that's good. The second idea is that, well, obviously Niru provides these resurrection things, but actually it's not very useful against the Scarlita teams, because even if you have the resurrection effect, if Scarlita slaps the hero out of the battlefield, the resurrection won't do anything, so it's not that useful against this specific case. And then the last thing that Niru has going for is that if you have a Supreme Plus Niru, he actually has like a healing reduction buff, but I haven't done enough testing, but it seems to be a little bit useless against, actually, because I was kind of thinking that maybe it would be useful if Niru can like give the healing reduction to the Hewynn, but the thing is that it has like initial cooldown, so he can only cast it like after 6 or 8 seconds. But actually what I noticed that is it takes him more like 10 seconds to cast it for the first time, so it's like quite late. And then I think what happens also is that because Hewynn has a dispel effect also, so I think sometimes the buff gets dispelled by Hewynn, so I don't know, it's just kind of hard to see if the healing reduction buff actually ever does anything. But yeah, that was kind of the idea behind using Niru. Now also, it's just also the fact that you get like the faction bonus of having 3 Graveborns and 2 light bearers. Now we are also using Ludovic, just for obviously for the healing effect, but also the idea behind using Ludovic was that when Temesia is kind of like riding around the battlefield, maybe the Ludovic will move the healing area where the Temesia or where the your Thoran is, so that if you have a Supreme Plus Ludovic, it says that the healing area, if enemies will step on the healing area, they will be stunned. But from my testing, it doesn't, I don't know why, but it seems like they are not stunned when they stand on it, or it has to be like really specific tile where they have to step on, or maybe it's that if it's kind of moved on top of the enemy, then they are not stunned, but they actually have to move into the flower field or something. But I was kind of having hard time seeing anyone ever being stunned by it. The idea was that maybe if the flower field is moved where your front line is, then when the enemy Scarlita comes down, she will be like instantly stunned. But that didn't seem to happen from my experience. Maybe I was not seeing it, but I don't know what was happening. But anyway, we were able to still win some of the fights. I'm gonna show them here.
Another victory to mine.
Then I just have some different themes that I was also using and testing. So against the version that is running Coco, I was testing kind of like this Mauler team with Shakir, and I was able to win sometimes at least against this team. Not every time, I think, but quite often. And so here are two of the battles with a little bit different placement, and I think with this one I was using Awakening spell, and with this one I was using Confining spell.
Another victory to my name.
And then here is just one example that, of course, if the enemy is allowing you to swap Hewynn, for example, then you can do something like more aggressive team with your Rainier, for example, targeting Arden and then swapping the enemy Hewynn next to your Arden. So I was able to win this one. Then I do have couple wins with like more aggressive team, but I think this is like you can win. So these were both wins, but this is like very RNG heavy. And then I was doing some testing with Smoky, because if the enemy is running Enlightening spell, then they don't have any crowd control in this team really. So your Smoky is quite free to cast his skills. And I was able to win this one, but I also lost against like this team, so it's not like guaranteed that you win. And maybe if you had like better Rowan and better Smoky and Coco, it would be more reliable, but especially with my team it was not very reliable. But let's take a look at how this goes. And then these are just not the same team anymore, but I just wanted to include because these were quite fun wins. I was finally able to win against this Temesia team that has like Paragon 1 Temesia and Paragon 2 Lily May, etc. But this is, so maybe you can get some inspiration if you're seeing similar teams, but this is not the guaranteed win, but it was also not like once a win. I was able to win it multiple times, but maybe not even like 50% of the times, but anyway, it was still a win. And then this was also in kind of like similar situation. They have like Paragon 1 Scarlita and Paragon 1 Lily May. And this team was able to win it multiple times, but once again, maybe less than 50% of time, like maybe like 40% of time or something like that. So yeah, that's what I've been kind of testing. Now, obviously, probably the easiest way to win against this team is to have your own Scarlita, but then it's also not guaranteed wins because there is like a lot of RNG involved when it comes to like having Thoran, if both teams have Thoran, Scarlita and Lily May. But if you don't have your own Scarlita, then maybe you can try these kind of teams instead. But yeah, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching and bye.